Hello everyone, Threxor here. It's Sunday, the day after Saturday, October 13th, 2013. And you're watching my show. At least somebody is. I am. I'm watching it unfold live, in front of everybody's eyes. And it's good times. I don't rhyme. I'm done. Yeah. So I apologize. A little rushed again today. Mostly because it's allergy season, or at least my body thinks it's allergy season, so kind of took me by surprise. Struggling a little bit. So today we're going to be talking about Zerg. This is the last part of my SimCity recreation / hey, here's some general advice on how you can place your buildings more effectively so that you don't lose. Building placement, not a huge thing, not something that a lot of people emphasize, but it's actually really helpful. Having the proper positioning for your buildings can get units onto the field a little bit. Hey, nobody asked you. Having the proper positioning can get units onto the field a little bit quicker. Having your buildings not too close to the edge gives them the opportunity to defend from drops from behind or anything like that. So today we're going to be looking at Zerg. Zerg is the most simplistic out of the three races for how you can plant and build your buildings. There's a couple of tips and tricks, and then we're going to wrap it up. So it's going to be another short episode today. I promise I'm going to have better episodes starting next week. My business trip that was planned has been postponed a little bit. There's a slight issue, so I will not be leaving yet. So I've got a few more episodes that I get to crank out. I'll probably be starting next week my the video series, where I'm going to look at yesterday's video where I mentioned something but forgot to write it down, and then talk about that. So let's go ahead and hop into this game. So what you're seeing here is the end of a game that I queued up by myself to kind of show you, illustrate. I have to tilt this monitor. It's driving me nuts. Okay, to kind of illustrate how Zerg plans, thinks, and does. There's a couple of things that are on this particular map that I didn't do. Like I didn't plant any buildings here to block off mineral line, but we're going to talk about that when we get there. We're going to be looking at general timings, and this is going to be coming from a macro-oriented Zerg player's perspective, not a Zerg player trying to do anything cheesy, i.e., let's say lanes at 7 minutes, like Bane lane bust at 7 minutes, or early 6 pool type play. So this is more of a macro-based play, more of a 14 hatch, 14 pool type play. So the end state of the game, just to kind of cover what we're talking about, we're going to be seeing that our main hatchery is going to be the one that we constantly upgrade from hatchery to lair to hive. We're going to be seeing kind of building placement for macro-oriented players, kind of tucking these buildings back here so that there's not as many attack surfaces on them. Tucking more of your tech buildings back here. We're going to be talking about this particular kind of wall-off from Zerg. It's not a true wall-off. This and this can both be moved. The queen doesn't quite seal it in properly, but two queens will very effectively. I don't have both queens there because I was just kind of doing my own thing. But yeah, we're going to talk about this wall-off a little bit. When you would use it, when you wouldn't use it. And then we're going to talk about this third base timing. And then, of course, massive armies. Yeah. Just obligatory mass armies. So, to get things started, we're going to go ahead and restart this replay. Pew! Pew, look, I was victorious! Once again, this is another replay where if you look at everybody, there's no opponent. It makes it much easier for me to focus on macro and timings. We're going to speed along here. Thing of note here, your first Overlord, usually built at 9, 9 supply, unless you are doing a geyser trick, an extractor trick, where you basically you take a drone, morph it into an extractor when you're at 10 supply, morph it into extractor, that drops you down to 9. You start building another drone, and then cancel your extractor. That puts you at 11 of 10 supply, which could be a huge boost to your economy early on if you don't want to build that first overlord and you want to build a hatch at 12. So we're going to keep pressing on because I didn't do it. Built my overlord at 9. Double drones it as soon as that overlord pops. As soon as you hit 14, any of your drones goes ahead and comes down here and starts building your hatchery at your natural expansion. And this is pretty typical for Zerg. Your next 14th drone gets turned into a spawning pool. When you're at 16 supply, you build another overlord, and then you can keep maxing out your supply with drones. And this kind of a play you'll typically see as soon as the spawning pool is finished. You'll see double queens come out and drones. You will just see tons and tons and tons of drones and some additional queens for larval injects. And for the first 6 minutes of the game, it's just drones and queens and drones and queens. Now, within the first 6 minutes of the game, there's a couple of different things that you can do. If you know you're going down an early tech path, like let's say you're getting roaches or you're going to be going speedlings into ultras later on in game, this would be a really good time to get double evo chambers down. And because you're being so greedy at this point, you really should have your double evos down right about now. I just kind of threw this together, so my timing's not perfect. 6 minutes is about when you're going to get your third. You're going to have a lot of stuff going down at 6 minutes. 8 minutes, you should realistically have an army out. My macro isn't the greatest, and I'm still working on that. I know what I need to do to improve, it's just getting my fingers to do it. Gonna pause it here. So what we see in this particular case is this kind of a wall off. Double evo chamber, spine crawler, and 1 or 2 queens, depending on how badly you want this sealed off. So when you're going big macro, at this point we're going to ignore this third base, and we're going to assume that this queen is back here in this wall with this other queen. So when you're doing some sort of fast expansions, some of the things that you're going to be looking for are how do you cut corners, how do you get more tech, more upgrades out faster than your opponents, so that when you spawn your army, which is very easy, very rapid for Zerg, especially when they're working off of 3 bases at the 8-minute mark, you're going to be looking for the shortcuts coming from your upgrades. So in this case, double evo chamber plus a spine crawler plus 2 queens walling off your big ramp, usually the big ramp at the natural, is super effective. So you've got 2 evo chambers that are both at 750 apiece for health. You've got a spine crawler that's at 300, has really decent range and does a crap ton of damage against armored units. This is susceptible to siege tanks, really early siege tanks, but usually at this point in the game, imagine that this number is a 6 instead of a 9, and this setup is kind of what you got going on, and this base is just starting. So you'll have 2 queens here. This is super effective because you've got 2 queens that can they can heal each other. They can use transfusion to heal each other if they're taking the hits, heal the spine crawler if it's taking the hits, or you can pull this queen that's on the natural hatch over to heal these 2 buildings, because you don't want either of these 2 queens that are going to be here to move. They're going to be in hold position, and then they're going to be using transfuse on each other or on the spine crawler. What is range on? Yeah. I'll have to experiment for range on transfuse. I think it's melee range only. It might be a little bit further, like 3 or 4 range. So, coming back here, talking about this spawning pool. This spawning pool placement is a matter of personal choice. Sometimes you'll see some players plant it here. You could choose to plant it here. You could effectively block off this runway in, so that anything coming into this base has to run by the queen to go up and around. Also, if you're going to be going for like really early and really fast roaches, spawning pool here, roach warren here, closes this entire area off, and they have to run all the way around in order to get at your workers at all. I've also seen, since you want the workers to be able to move in and out really easily, spawning pool here, where I've placed it, you place your other tech building here, and it effectively does the same thing, only it gives your workers kind of a runaway point. So, you know, lings come in this way, workers go out this hole, and then back in this hole if they need to. But this kind of placement is pretty much just a matter of choice. Early game, I'm not too worried about my spawning pool getting sniped when I place it back there. Down here, you'll see 2 more buildings come down. We'll go ahead and speed things along. But down here, you'll see a couple more buildings come off. A whole bunch of overlords being made. Because money. Additional vesping. Not important. We're just kind of zooming along, going forward. There it is. So, I literally just built these 2 buildings just to show the size difference of the spire compared to the other buildings, and to show how you can place the spire. So, this particular spire placement allows you to get hydras back here if you need to, if you already have hydras on the field. If you're getting dropped, it allows you to get lings and roaches back here. This spire could also be placed right in this corner. I think it might fit right there. It just might not. But I mean, when you have spire out, you're looking to defend it from attacks from other mutas, other spires, other air units that can happen to attack ground. So the spire placement, usually you will put in this kind of a position where you've got 3 bases that are in this nice little line right here. I'm going to add this in. So when you've got 3 bases that are in this little line right here, you're going to place most of your tech buildings off of this middle base. There we go. So when you're looking at it here, you'll place them here behind the mineral line, usually. You could place them over here. I don't recommend it. It's too easy for tanks to park here and snipe it off, or back here and snipe it off. So you want to keep it safe. You want to keep all of your tech buildings safe from ground forces that try to roll in, so you don't want them on the front line. And you want them safe from any sort of marauding mutalisks or harassment units. So on this particular map, you've got your opponent that's down here that will be coming up and over, or across and up. So when you've got this kind of a shot, the best way to defend your tech structures is to place them in the middle. You'll be able to see and start attacking your opponent at this base with queens. You'll be able to start moving your army in, and then be able to pick them off or push them back by the time they get here. If they come in this side, you can say the same thing. You have queens that can start to do some damage up here, and then they'll fly around, do some harass. You'll get the army in place to intercept them here so that you don't lose tech buildings. Tech buildings are expensive, and tech buildings are super important for when you're trying to play any sort of macro game, because you've already got all the base built up. You're literally just trying to literally just trying to keep those support structures up so that your 3-hatch, 4-hatch level of supply can produce the army when you need it. Some other stuff. Some guys. Fully saturated bases. Yay! Fully saturated bases. Okay. So this takes us to our pause again. And at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the building placement's going to be affecting your strategy overall. So if you know you're going for Spire as a Zerg player, or if you suspect you'll be going for Spire as a Zerg player, you're going to not be as concerned as blocking your reinforcement paths as you will be if you're building, say, Ultras, Infestors, anything that's kind of slow. So when we look at the game, we're talking about reinforcement paths. I spoke on this yesterday, and that is the path that a unit takes to reach the rest of your army, or wherever your army is assembling. So in this particular case, you can tell that I'm kind of favoring for a ground-based army. I don't have any buildings in the way. They can just run down this tiny ramp. There's nothing blocking off this ramp. When they get to this one, this spire can be uprooted and moved out of the way if you have big groups of ultras coming through, or if you have some infestors that are trying to get around. These two buildings are kind of inconsequential. They're built there to do their little production upgrades. By the time you get ultras out, you should be at 3-3 finishing it up. So if you need to blow these buildings down, you can. But everything should be able to fit through this little hole right here. From this side, you have a big ramp that never gets blocked off unless you're absolutely positively needing to defend this base. There's no other way up to this base other than drops and air units. So your reinforcement paths are open. If you're going straight to air and you're pretty much ignoring everything else, you can close this up even more. You can plant another production facility, more spine crawlers. You can plant spine crawlers here to defend this a little bit easier. But you also won't be seeing a Zerg player that's going straight to air building a third hatch by 6 minutes either. You'll mostly see that come off of 2-base Zerg. It's a 2-base Zerg all in with mutas or something crazy like that. So, yeah. Open rally points are always good. Zerg likes to play in open areas on the map to where they can get good surrounds with Zerglings, Ultras, those kind of units. The only time that they're going to want to kind of enclose their opponent is when they're playing some sort of infestor type play where clumps and groups of biological based units are very easy pickings. So you basically just use fungal growth from the infestors, and then you have your ultras just kind of stomp through and whittle through them all, just kind of blow them out of the way. So building placement for Zerg, it depends on what you're doing. The layout that I showed you today is very effective for Zerg players that are opening ground and more than likely going to be staying on ground. Their units aren't affected by it at all. It gives you good attack paths. It gives you good open reinforcement paths as well. And it allows you to get up a lot of units really quick, really effectively, and get them into the field, into the fight when you want them. So today we talked about building placement for Zerg. We talked about how you can use certain buildings to block off certain places. For example, using your first spawning pool to make Zerglings run the long way around to get to your workers if there's an early rush. As in contrast to using that spawning pool, building it in the back so that you have an easier time getting units out onto the field. But yeah, Zerg's really, really easy. There's not a whole lot that they can do. They can't really move their buildings like Terran. They don't really have to worry about their production facilities being production facilities, because they're not. All you have to do is worry about that one little path from the hatchery going to wherever you want your units to end up. So that being said, I hope you guys like the show. As always, you can catch me on twitch.tv/Threxor here if you're watching live. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on youtube.com/Threxor. You can also catch my Twitter feeds at Threxor. Twitter.com/Threxor, something along those lines. And I have a website out now, Threxor.net. You can go check it out. There's a contact form. Will really contact me. I really do check that email pretty often. So if you have any sort of game strategies that you'd like me to analyze, that you'd like me to look at, go ahead and send me an email. I can put it together, and I can put it up as a show, and I'll go ahead and throw a shout out there. Also, if you're a tournament organizer and you need someone to do live casting for tournaments, I'm available most weekends. If it's a middle of the week tournament, we'll have to look at my schedule to see what I'm doing. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you guys on the ladder.